Okay. Okay, we're recording.
That mic should be working too if it's easier than holding it.
Okay. Well, we're fortunate this afternoon. About a year ago, Erickson Living partnered with the Texas Presbyterian Foundation to expand our plan giving opportunities that we now can provide to our residents. And I'm so happy that Rick Young, who is the president of the foundation, is with us today. He flew up yesterday from Texas, spent this morning with our sister community up in Brooksby, and we're lucky enough to have him for an hour here this afternoon. So welcome, Rick.
Thank you. Just a little bit about me. I have been with Texas Presbyterian Foundation for 6.5 years. The previous 33 years, I pastored 4 different churches. So I am used to crowds nodding off occasionally. I used to tell the folks in the congregation, I learned in Presbyterianism, it doesn't matter when you begin, it matters when you end. So I promise you we will get you out of here on time. A little bit about Texas Presbyterian Foundation. We were formed in 1925 by the Synod of Texas, which is a governing body of the Presbyterian Church. And so in 1925 we had our beginnings, and it wasn't until the mid-50s that we really got started in doing what we do today. And what we do today, for the most part, even though this is a big part of what we do is we help nonprofits invest their funds. So if there are endowment funds or long-term capital type funds, we manage those funds. We cannot manage funds for individuals. We're very loud and clear about that. So I'm not coming in here, I promise, to get you to invest with Texas Presbyterian Foundation. And let me go ahead and answer the question that I got from Brooksby this morning, which is, no, I do not receive a commission from any of the charitable gift annuities or any other instruments that are written. I am paid by Texas Presbyterian Foundation, and none of our staff receives any outside compensation besides their straight salaries. So that's a little bit about who we are. We are thrilled to have united with Erickson Living back, as she said, year or 18 months ago. So we found it to be a good partnership, and I thank you for the invitation of being here. Part of what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about the individual ways in which you can leave a legacy, but also going to talk somewhat about just what is your legacy and what you hope that legacy to be. Probably all of you have a legacy. It may not be the one you want, but you probably have one that people know you by. Okay, come on, babe. About 10 years ago, when I was pastoring the church, one of the funeral homes called me and asked if I would do the funeral for someone who didn't have a church home. We got those calls on a regular basis, but I said yes, that I'd be glad to do that, but I'd really like to meet with her family before so that we could make it somewhat more personal than just me standing up there doing a service and really not knowing who the individual was. So I met with the family the afternoon before the service, and I started the conversation with, well, can you tell me about your mother, grandmother, aunt, etc.? And stone silence. And I said, okay, let me see if we can stoke the pump a little bit. And do you have some stories that you'd like to share about her? Stone silence still. So I went a little further and said, you know, what did she like to do? Still silence. I was there 30 minutes and I got one story from the family that took place 62 years in the past. It was an odd funeral, to say the least. So when I went home that night, I told Meg and our two daughters, I said, okay, when I go, I don't care if it's true. Make up stories so that the pastor has at least something to say about me. They all laughed and said, Dad, we're not going to have to make up anything. No pastor's going to believe it anyway, so but we'll tell the stories. But all of us have a legacy. One of the big events that took place last month down in our neck of the woods was the death of Barbara Bush. And it was fascinating for me to sit and listen to the stories about who she was and how she had interacted and what a difference she had made to family and to granddaughters and all the way across the board. I had the privilege of getting to know her early in President Bush's tenure. She was an Iron Maiden. That would be the fair way to describe her. But the one thing that I remember that I'll probably never forget is when they panned on President Bush, and you may remember the picture, they panned on him and he was wearing socks. Do you remember what were on the socks? Books. And it was because it was a recognition of the legacy that she left by helping with literacy and childhood literacy as well as adult literacy. But to me it was one of those that resonated, and I think a lot of people will remember those things. So all of us have a legacy. There are basically two different kinds. I went the wrong way, sorry. There are two different kinds of legacy. One is a legacy of purpose, and that probably the easiest way to describe a legacy of purpose would be it pretty much described how we spent our lives. It may have been raising children, grandchildren, foster children. It also may be the occupation that we had or where we volunteered, but that's the legacy of purpose that people can, and you've all read the obituaries where that first part is this is all the things they did. The other part that I say is as important and we need to make sure that gets passed on is the legacy of love. And to me, the legacy of love is what makes a heart beat. What gives us the momentum to feel good about where we are and what we accomplished. Again, it may be helping a child. It may be continuing the mission of a retirement home. It may be helping out with a church. All of those things can fall into the legacy of love and are things that we need to remember. Oftentimes in my job, I get to send checks and write checks to beneficiaries. And it was a young man, he was a teenager, and his grandfather had died. And he came into the office and began to talk to me, and he said, you know, it meant so much to me that out of Granddad's estate, there was a percentage that went to the organization that he loved so much. He said, it wasn't as if I needed that inheritance, but it was important to me to see that it was so important to him that he left it in his estate. My guess is all of you probably have already taken care of wills and everything else. If you haven't, please do. I promise you it will not cause you to die if you write a will. It has scientifically been proven that you will not die within a week of writing a will, even though I visit with people all the time who say, well, I don't want to do that because I may die. Because of the foundation that I work for, what we realize is that a lot of people write their wills when the children come along, and then they put them away, and they don't pick them up again until the children are grown, and you go, oh, I better update that. But then we put them away again, and we forget to look at them. I tell folks they need to look at their wills every 2 years at a minimum. The reason is, I'm not saying you need to rush to an attorney to go over the whole process, but just look at it. One of the things that we found is that in doing the wills, oftentimes we pick someone who is our age as an executor. Well, guess what? I'm now 85, and my executor is 85, and my executor doesn't have the time, energy, or strength to be it. So what happens oftentimes is that person is excused, and then it becomes a free-for-all. You do not want it to become a free-for-all. In the state of Texas, it becomes so much of a free-for-all that they take wills to the county courthouse and they hold them up, and attorneys gather around and take them. I've been at those meetings. There isn't one of those attorneys that I would ever want touching any of my stuff, much less my estate, to take care of kids and family. About a year ago, it's been 2 or 3 now, I guess, I got a call from an attorney in Houston, and we were in Dallas-Fort Worth. And he said, well, you're the president of Texas Presbyterian Foundation. Congratulations, you are Mrs. Hall's executor. I said, well, I've never met Mrs. Hall. He said, well, it doesn't matter. She named you. I said, well, she doesn't, how did she name me? He said, well, she named the president. So you're it. He said, but don't worry. If an attorney ever tells you not to worry, start beginning to panic. He said, don't worry, it is, for the most part, it's liquid. You shouldn't have any problem. He called me back in about 6 weeks and said, are you still president? I said, yes. He said, well, good. Mrs. Hall's retirement home wants to know when you're coming to clean out her apartment. Mrs. Hall had lived in that apartment 37 years. Mrs. Hall had no children. She had a godson who was 72. She was 97 and a half when she died. Godson 72 and a goddaughter who was 68. I met them at the apartment, and the godson, the first thing he said as he walked in through the door was, I need you to know I'm 72 and I have enough of my own crap. I don't need any more of this stuff. So, which was wonderfully helpful. And so then the goddaughter came and took a couple of things, and so the rest of it was left to me. I would tell you I found out more about Mrs. Hall than Ms. Hall ever wanted me to know about her. The family, I think out of spite, had said, well, you know, don't throw anything away, because she used to hide money in dresses and shoe boxes. So go through everything before. Now, this is me sitting on the floor going through hymns of dresses. We found $6.93. I think the family got a great laugh. But if I can leave anything with you, it would be just please take a few minutes just to go over making sure that your estate and the will is in order. If it is drawn in another state, you need to make sure that it works the same way in Massachusetts, because states vary on those. Enough for that PR. As I said, all of us leave a legacy. Here's a short poem about legacy, and then what will your legacy be? One of the things that you'll notice in the folder that I gave you is an insert that we use with churches and other organizations, and it lists a whole lot of questions on there about legacy and what you wish it would be. It might be fun when you get back in your own room just to look at some of those questions. Is there too much to leave a family? We have dealt with and have found that unfortunately the death of an individual oftentimes splits families, and and that doesn't have to be a large estate. It can be a small estate. First church I served was in a central Texas, and the father owned a ranch and had two sons who hated each other, and hate was a mild word. When Dad died, he left 50% to each one. They cut the house in half, literally, and moved it 20 feet apart and sealed in the ends and never spoke to one another. Dad must have rolled over in his grave more times than I can imagine. But unfortunately, I have seen it happen, and it's not pretty. These are legacy planning tools. These are ways in which you, as individuals, can remember charities or other organizations that are important to you. We're going to go through them quickly. And I'm going to spend a little more time on a charitable gift annuity just because it's important that you know how it works. Donor advised funds are a recent tool. They've only been around for about a decade. What these are is individual can give a certain amount of money to a foundation or a charitable organization that does donor advised funds. Fidelity does them as well. And what they do is you give the money to Fidelity or to a foundation. That money stays there. You get the immediate tax deduction, but you don't have to offer to have it sent to charities immediately. So it's kind of like a savings account for charities. So you give some stocks, the stocks are sold, then you can write a note or a letter or an email even to the organization saying, please send this to the SPCA, please send this to this facility, and those go out. You only get the deduction at the first time. One of the reasons that people use this tool, number one, is they don't know where all of where the charities they want to give to are immediately, or what the needs are. So the money is there, it's being invested and grows so that you can have the chance to give away more. The tax code has changed these a little bit. I'm not going there. I am not a tax accountant, so. I will say one of the things that we've seen that is great about donor advised funds is that bottom point. which is we have a couple of these that the grandparents have set them up, and the children and the grandchildren of the board of directors. So they meet once a year to decide where to give the money away. Now, I've laughed with one of them because the grandfather makes sure that the meetings are held in lovely places like the Bahamas or Disney World, or they were, trying to think where they were last year. They were in Hawaii last year. I have laughed with him and hope that he has helped the children and grandchildren understand that once he's gone, that will not continue. But the wonderful thing, and he has laughed with me about it, is that what it's done is it's helped the children and the grandchildren understand the gift of generosity. Because they get together, they get to talk about what these charities do, and they do the work. They go and they visit the charities, they find out all about them, and then they make their pitch to the rest of the gathered group. So in that way, we've seen them work well. An endowment is a word that's often used freely, but we need to understand that an endowment is a gift that is accepted by an organization, and that the organization will fulfill the request of the endowment. Does that make sense? So you give the money, you say, I want this to continue the programs of this retirement home. As long as the money's used for that way, that's fine. You just can't use it for other things. I had a church call me about 9 months ago. This pastor on the phone, and he said, I know you can help me. He said, I need you to help us redefine youth. I said, what do you mean you want to redefine youth? He said, well, I want to make youth anybody under 65 years of age. I said, well, that's probably not going to get by a court very easily. Why would you want to do that? He said, well, we have 2 people in the church that are under 65. And we need to use that $50,000 that's endowed. So can you help us redefine youth? We have a weird court system in Texas, but it's not that weird. So we were not much help there. But endowments can be set up easily. Again, the organization has to agree to follow the conditions that are set forth. They are a lasting way to be remembered. We see scholarship funds and others being used as an endowment. What I advise folks, if they want to set up an endowment, is that the purpose be as broad as possible. You don't want to narrow it down too much, because then you may tie the organization into something that may not need to be continued, but they have to. This is the easiest way to leave an organization such as this place or another organization that you care about. It's the easiest way. It is just leaving either a lump sum or a percentage of the estate to a certain organization. This can be made easily. It doesn't require a will being rewritten. It can be a codicil to a will as long as it's notarized. The other thing about codicils and this way of leaving assets to an organization is that it is amendable. So you can always go in, you decide, well, 10% may be too much, I'll give 5, or I was going to leave 10,000, I think I'll leave 20. But the only place that this affects taxes at all, if it even does, is after your death. The others have some tax effect before you die. I would, so that's just one difference in a bequest. Charitable gift annuities. These are tools that are used by individuals. These are mainly used I want to make sure that I remember this organization that is so dear to me, but I can't write a check today. I don't have that much liquid asset, but I want to make sure that down the road, the organization I care about gets a gift. So what these are set up for is you receive a portion of the gift as a tax deduction. Then you receive a portion of the distribution as tax-free income. And then it always creates a gift to the charitable organization of your choice. We don't do the defer the income to a later date anymore, partially because it became somewhat of a nightmare recording status-wise. So just so that you're aware of that. So let me give you an example of how this works. The way gift annuities are set up is that once the gift is given to the organization makes an agreement with the individual to pay them quarterly for the rest of their life. Now let's use here as an example. You decide that you want to give $10,000 as a gift annuity. For that gift annuity, we would look at your age. We would go to the actuarial tables that all organizations use across the United States, and we would say to you, you are so old, you are this age, so your percentage would be 5, 6, 7%, and we would pay that out to you for as long as you lived. But the responsibility is not on here, it would be on Texas Presbyterian Foundation. So the retirement home is the gift receiver, but isn't held responsible for paying out the contract. Now, let me give you a disclaimer real quickly. This is not a good place. I would never advise anyone to use a rainy day fund that you have and you're saying, well, you know, I'm not getting much on money markets and I'm not getting much on my investments, so why don't I do this and put it in a charitable gift annuity where I'm going to get more? The problem is once you have given the gift, it's given. You cannot come back in and say, you know, an emergency came along, so I need to get that money back. I always want to make sure that people understand that's not what this is. This is not an investment tool that's going to get you more for a while. We'll tell you that it is scientific proof that people who do charitable giving and charitable gift annuities live longer. So if you want to live a long time, take out a bunch of charitable gift annuities. I don't make that guarantee because sometimes I get fooled on those. But we had someone come in the office the other day. His caretaker brought him in and he was 104 years old. Well, to say he's not on the actuarial tables would be an understatement. So we set it at the highest that we could pay, which was about 10%. And he said, well, I'll be back next year to do it all over again. And I don't have any doubt that he will be. The IRS considers part of this income, part of the income to be a return on principal, therefore that portion is tax-free income. Provides a higher rate of income, and it's guaranteed for the lifetime. Charitable gift annuities, by the code that we use, are set up to leave 50% to the final beneficiary. So let's say you gave $10,000. The way it's set up is that this organization would receive $5,000. We've been doing, at Texas Presbyterian Foundation, we've been doing these about 20 years, and our average is closer to 73–74%. So it's a simple page-and-a-half contract. It's very easy. And actually, one of the things that you'll find if you go to our website, and you have help here that can do that as well, there is a calculator on the website. So you can actually go to the website, plug in the amount that you'd like to give, plug in your age, and it'll calculate for you how much of it would be regular income, how much of it would be left to give to the beneficiary. So the way it works, as I said, is the money goes to Texas Presbyterian Foundation. It's Texas Presbyterian Foundation that takes care of making sure that the money goes to the individual, and then once the death occurs, the charitable beneficiary is the one that gets it. Here's an actual example of that. $10,000 was the gift. The annuitant is 80 years old. Would receive a partial tax deduction of $4,731. Would receive annuity of $680. Tax-free amount of that is $560. One life payout for the whole time would be about $8,500, and the effective payout rate is 7.8. So you can see the difference in a money market account versus one of these, if that is what you had planned to do with the money all along. And then the charity would receive about $7,000. Here are the percentages. Like I said, the 104-year-old was over 10%. But I do need to tell you that once you reach the age, the actuarial age in which, let's say you're 60, let's say you're 75 and your actuarial age is 86, once you've reached 86, everything you receive becomes taxable because you've outlived the actuarial age. But there's alternatives to figure out how to speed up the gift, etc. So some of the you can use 1 or 2 lives. As an example of that, say a husband and wife both want to do an annuity, and then but you combine the ages of the two, and that's how you get what the rate would be. It's if they're the same age, then it's probably close to that rate. If one's a lot younger, then it does change. TPF's minimum is $5,000. You'll often see minimums of 25, but we do this because we're a nonprofit and we want to help other organizations benefit. So we make no money on these. I will tell you that the 50% of the gift is not required that it be to Presbyterian related. That slide is in there because I do this a lot to churches. We have set the agreement here with Erickson Living that all of the money can go to Erickson It doesn't have to be Presbyterian related. You can get the automatic deposits, and it's guaranteed for a lifetime. We have seen folks that lived much, much longer than they were actuarially supposed to, and so they didn't, the charitable beneficiary didn't get as much. If you can imagine that the actuarial age was 86 and they lived to be 104, they've received income for 16 more years, and so there may not be as much left. The last tool is a charitable remainder trust. The difference in this tool versus the previous one is that actuarial tables set the return for charitable gift annuities. In a charitable remainder trust, that income is set and the percentage is set by the person when they establish it. So it may be higher than the gift annuity because you need more money to live. I would also tell you we saw a whole lot more of these back before the tax codes began to change, and especially with the estate tax change. The estate tax change now allows for individuals, at least the U.S. code, allows almost $5 million as an exclusion. It's $10 million if you're a couple, and so there's not as much need for many to shelter that as there has been in the past. The difference here as well is that you can add contributions to a remainder trust. If you want to add contributions to a gift annuity, you just actually open a whole new gift annuity. We have folks with as many as 30 gift annuities. And that's brought me to the end. So I'm here and ready to answer your questions or concerns. Or I'll stay around for a while and talk to you individually. Or you can go enjoy the beautiful weather, and I'm okay with that too.
Bring that?
I brought you good weather. I did not bring you the heat. It's a lot warmer in Texas right now. It's about, when I left it was 93 yesterday, so. But for us, that's spring. We wait until it gets to be about 105 before we call it summertime, so.
I have a few questions, and maybe people
Absolutely.
who don't want to hear them, I don't know. Question, how is this fund insured? So how do we know if we give you 20,000 today, 5 years ago, that if now it's going to be?
That's a good question of how do you know that it's there, going to be there. One of the things that Texas Presbyterian Foundation does is we have set aside our own money out of our own funds that we do not hold to make sure that we can meet all of the requirements of our gift annuities. We have about $1 billion in investment funds behind us, so it'll be there, I promise you. It's not insured by the FDIC. I want to be clear about that, but I will also tell you that no charitable gift annuity that I know of is insured by the FDIC.
That's the next question. Maybe you hit on it, but I just didn't pick up on it.
Well, I speak a different language. I speak Texan, so I may have said it and you just didn't understand. So go ahead.
So does Linden Ponds get a portion, I say we did one, a portion of the money now and then a portion when we die, or do they get?
They get it all when you die.
So they have to wait until we die, okay.
They will not put you on a special prayer list just because you have a gift annuity. You gotta be careful. We're not wishing for you to die sooner.
Oh, I thought the prayer was to keep me alive.
Well, we want to keep you alive too. That prayer list will keep you on. But part of what this does, and it's part of the whole process with legacy is that legacy giving is not to maintain the organization today. It is a pipeline for the future of gifts to come in down the road. Your gift might not come in for 20 years, but you're affecting people with that gift that you haven't even met. So that's how it feeds down the road. Does that make sense?
Now, another question, say Linden Ponds disappeared before I did.
Yeah, you know,
I'm asking.
no, it's a fair question. I got asked the question this morning as well. What we do when we do gift annuities is we ask you to give us a successor. So in case Linden Ponds goes away, which it's not going to do, but in case it goes away, then there is someone else, another charitable organization that we can pass that money along to. Yes, sir?
In the logic of this, I can see where you want to leave, you've accumulated the assets, and you want to leave some. It may be a home for disabled people or whatever. Then you need income, and you need the income now to pay the monthly fee at
Yes, sir.
I can see that it might be desirable to designate that home for disabled and make a gift annuity. But along comes Mari Fuller Blakey, very persuasive, and says, well, Linden Ponds is a very good organization too. I don't think the agreement with with Erickson, you can't split. So the thing you would do as a practical matter would be set a gift annuity for the home for the disabled and another one, if it so moves you, to set up one for
You could do that, but you could split it originally. You could say,
You can. That's
yes,
the question.
you could say that half goes to Linden Pond and half goes to the
Okay.
to the disabled. As long as it's set up in the initial agreement
Okay, that's
of how you want to do that, then that's okay. We had a gentleman who it's a perfect example of what you described. He knew that at the end of his life he hoped to set up a chair at the University of Tulsa in his name.
Sure.
Had no children, but he also knew, and he worked with the University of Tulsa through this process. He bought 23 gift annuities at $100,000 apiece.
You heard the lies are off the board.
You just made her day.
Yes, I understand that. We're getting ready to call so that they can shock her back to life. But, so he had set up that agreement, but he knew that he needed the income off that $100,000 each year to live in the style that he wanted to live. And he could get more with a charitable gift annuity. He knew when his life was over anyway, all the money was going to go to University of Tulsa. It's one of the stories that I probably am most proud of. He died about 2.5 years ago. So 23 gifts, 23 gift annuities, $100,000. That's $2.3 million. We wrote a check to the University of Tulsa for $2.29 million. Now, some of those were really good years in the stock market. So that would appreciate the gift. But you described it exactly the way it works. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
If I've got, I've left 10%.
Thank you.
is there an advantage to me or to Lincoln Parks to change it for
If you need some of the, if you want some of that as income, there's an advantage, but either way, Linden, I will tell you, let me use a specific example. Linden Ponds will get more money if you leave it as a 10% bequest than they would if you do it through a gift annuity. The reason you would do it through a gift annuity might be to receive some income for you during the interim process. But of that corpus, they're not going to get 100% to Linden Ponds. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Now, also then, if I did want to change, which form, which gifting form?
Well, personally, I'd use the charitable gift annuity. I mean, it's the one that makes the most sense because there's going to be something that you get back from it. But again, I want to be real clear in the fact that overall, Linden Ponds is going to get more on the simple bequest than they would off a charitable gift annuity because you're pulling some of that money out as you receive an annuity. Does that
Makes sense.
okay? I want to help Linden Ponds as much as I can. I'm not trying to sell this to take money away. So I want to be as transparent and honest as I can be. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think taxes drive a great deal of this activity. And as I understand it, let's say I made my fortune when I bought some Apple stock at $15 a share, and now it's at 180 or 170. The motivation to set up a charitable gift annuity is if you have a chunk of stock
Yes, sir.
in Amazon or Apple, doesn't pay much of a dividend, you can take the value of that stock
Right.
and take a tax deduction off of that. So the motivation to do a charitable gift annuity, as I see it, versus the 10% is you get an immediate tax deduction,
Right.
which you do not get.
You will not get at your death.
So it may be more to your advantage
It depends where it depends how the money is.
where it's sitting right
where
now.
it's sitting right now. Someone this morning asked me, they work for IBM as an example, and worked for them for 30 years, she and her husband. Well, their stock value is basically zero. I mean, their cost value is zero.
That's what they pay.
If they were to sell that stock with what it is today, the capital gains on that would absolutely eat them alive.
Exactly.
So she was talking about using some of those accelerated stock options, put those in a gift annuity. That way she got all the credit while she's still alive for the tax gift. So she got the tax advantage. Plus, then she got some revenue down the road.
And this is why, if you're considering anything like this, you get some good tax advice,
Yes.
because taxes drive a great deal of this charitable.
I would never ask anyone in this group to go out and make a decision today on
Without-
what you heard from me. Please talk to tax folks. Please talk to an attorney, as well as a good accountant, because I do not want to be the driver, nor do I want to be responsible because you said, oh, well, he told us it's a great deal. Well, it's an individual decision for everyone, and you need help in making those decisions. So that's my disclaimer. Yes, ma'am.
I believe, and I'm no tax authority at all, but I believe that the state of Massachusetts estate tax kicks in at $1 million.
Again,
So how does that work?
it will play in some of that. I will tell you, because I live in Texas. Texas does not have an estate tax. So I'm not as familiar with all the different states. What I will tell you is Many states have inheritance or estate tax. Those limits vary mightily from, I think there's one that's down as low as $500,000 before the tax kicks in. Others go up as high as the government's, which is, that's why I say find someone in this state that can help you with those decisions.
Yes.
If you came here from New York, it's not helpful to go back and talk to someone in New York because they may not understand Massachusetts law. It is one of those things, again, on estates, especially on wills, that a lot of people have written their will where they lived before they moved here or somewhere else. I will tell you, every state has its idiosyncrasies when it comes to wills. So you want to make sure the language works in the state where you think you will reside when you die, or where you have residence. If your legal residence is Massachusetts, it doesn't matter where you die, they go by where your legal residence is. I know I didn't answer your question, but I'm not even going to try. It's
Tish, see me later.
part of what the issue is that all the states kick in far differently. So there are times, depending on the state, where a trust may make sense, where it doesn't make sense for the federal government. But again, that's way above my pay grade. It's a good question. Thank you for asking it, because it really does come into play.
There's a big difference between the state and the fed.
It's a huge difference, and if the current president gets his way, which we don't know, but if he gets his way, federal estate tax in 10 years, there will not be one. I don't know how we make up for that, but that's above my pay grade as well. Anything else I can help you with? I thank you. Thank you for your comments, your questions. You have an expert right here. And in each one of those folders is my business card. And I will be more than willing to answer your questions if you email me. I usually get back on emails within 24 hours if I'm in the country. So I would be glad to answer your questions, but the answer to some of your questions, maybe you need to go talk to somebody else. So again, thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
Oh, I just want to say thank you, Rick. What a pleasure to have you. You explained some complex, items for us so clearly. And Norm, thank you for taping this, because I think we need to get the word out. So thank you, everybody.